Technomancer, creator of Crossroads, and in this video we'll be talking about Technomancy. I would like to note before we begin that we've updated the Crossroads version we're using for these tutorials to 2.6.0. This is significant because that version is the latest version and it adds a lot of new Technomancy features, so I wanted to make sure to update before we continued this tutorial on to Technomancy. Alright. So, Technomancy, like Alchemy, is one of the paths you can choose for the end game. And unlike Alchemy, where it's relatively safe, I mean, you can still have accidents and you can still destroy things if you're not careful. But Alchemy is generally much safer. Technomancy is very, very easy to mess up, and it's very easy to destroy a lot of your machinery very, very quickly. There are config settings which you can use to make things much safer if you want to, or if you're worried about it on servers, or just in single player you don't really want the stress of it all. You can absolutely turn that off. Technomancy more or less gives you access to everything immediately, unlike Alchemy, where there's often a long progression chain to get to the cooler stuff. Unlike Alchemy, where the features are fairly simple to use but hard to get, in Technomancy they're easy to get but quite hard to use. It's also a lot more open-ended in Technomancy. So first we're going to cover all the items in Technomancy, and then we're going to get on to the machines. This may end up being 2 videos, we'll see. So once you've unlocked Technomancy, as we did in the Paths introduction video, you'll get a chapter in the book on it with all of the features. Now, we're going to do the items first. So the first thing we're going to show off is the beam staff and the beam cage. Now these are 2 different items. Both of these are Technomancy items, as you can see from the recipe having that little gear icon. And both of them require this material called Copshoium. Now, Copshoium is a Technomancy exclusive material. You can't get it until you have Technomancy unlocked. You're going to see how to get that in the video when we get to the machines, but just know that basically all the Technomancy features require it. It's a metal, you can make it into blocks and whatnot, but as far as we're concerned, it's a crafting ingredient. Now, the cage is like a battery for beams. We're also going to need a cage charger, which is a block, and I can just put my cage into it or take it out by shift right clicking. And hoppers can also do this, so this is totally automatable. Everything has circuit support, so there's definitely ways you can automate this. And what you do is, if I get a beam extractor, or a resonance extractor as an example, if I put the beam, now if you look at the beam cage, it says 0 out of 2048 energy potential stability void. This thing is a beam battery. We can charge it up. So if I put, for example, some redstone dust in here and shoot beams at it, all of those beams will go into the cage. So you can see we're charging it up. And we can take this out, and we can see it's charged up somewhat. If we put this in the extractor, and let me actually, just to make sure that it's clear what comes out, let me put a reflector here. If we put the cage in the extractor, it will discharge the entire contents of the cage at once, so you can use this to actually store beams in item form and get them out at the end, and you can actually take the cage out again, and you can take it out with a hopper or something like that. But that's not the main use for the beam cage. The main use for the beam cage is to use it with the beam staff. Now I'm going to just spawn in a fully charged one to save time. And what you want to do is you want to either put it in your offhand, or if you've got a Baubles or Curios installed, you can put it in the Curios slot. I'm going to be using the offhand. And you can see on the top left of my screen, there's a little info thing that shows you the cage. Now those 4 bars are how charged it is. So for example, if I put in an empty one, you're going to see it's empty. And if I put in a full one, you can see all 4 colors are full. And we're going to get a staff, and when I hold this, you can see another indicator in the top left. Now, we're now going to need to bind some controls. And I'm going to do that. So let's do R, G, B, and V, which is just what I typically use for this. These are 4 keybinds in Crossroads that are unbound by default, so you just want to bind them to something. And now, if I hold the staff and I press, for example, R, which I said bound to energy, you can see that little red bar has gone up by 1 notch in the top left for beam staff. And I can keep doing it. There's a little click each time. I can hold shift and press it, and it'll go down. I can also hold down the button. I don't have to tap it. And similarly, I can control all the colors. Now, we're going to do... Oh, let's do an 8800. So what I'm going to do is when I hold right-click, it's going to shoot a beam out of my face, out of the staff, where I'm in the direction I'm looking, and that beam is going to match the thing I just set in the top left. And it's going to drain the beam power from the cage. The cage is the battery powering all this. So I just did 8 notches of red and 8 notches of green, aka 8 energy, 8 potential, aka that's a power 16 charge beam. And as you can see, when let's look at my F5, you can see there's a yellow beam sort of coming out, quite a big one. We can also look from this view in the direction I'm looking, and it's doing what you'd expect where it hits. Summon lightning this way. So now we've got a tool that lets us make redstone or summon lightning. So what we're able to do now is basically summon beams below a certain power anywhere we like. Well, before we mainly used beams as part of automation, now we can actually use them as sort of a handy gadget. And that can be quite strong, considering some beam types are quite powerful. We can, for example, use this as a weapon. Potential void does hurt things. Hey, we've got a death ray now. And we can make it do more damage if we charged it up, if we gave it more power. Similarly, if we wanted an Explodo Ray, Stability Void could give us quite a strong one. So let's start taking this down. And now that's dropped dirt everywhere, but you know what? Maybe I want to place all this dirt down on the ground in a great big pile for some reason. So, of course, that means we're going to want expansion. So you might be able to see how being able to just summon beams anywhere can be quite useful. Quite a lot of the beams, quite a lot of utility when used this way. I tend to use Potential and Potential Void for healing and killing. I like to use Stability Void for explosions. I tend to use Charge for lightning. I find that's quite an effective weapon. And a good way to get music discs and whatnot. And I often tend to use... what is the other one I use? I use Light a lot. Because just the ability, if you're in a cave, to just summon glowstone is quite good. Or these little light sources. So it's a little like a convenient torch maker. Stuff like that. If you want to just cool down, heat something up, you can shoot energy at it, or energy void to cool it down, and so on and so forth. So that's a handy gadget. It also has melee damage, just because it's a great big metal stick. It's actually quite an effective weapon, though quite slow. That's not the main point of it. And when this beam cage runs out, we won't be able to do that anymore, and we'll need to recharge it. So the beam staff's quite a convenient little device. Now the flying machine we actually showed off during one of the alchemy videos, but I'll show it off again. The flying machine is unusual in that it's not a Technomancy item and it's not an alchemy item, it's both. Both Technomancers and Alchemists can craft it, but it requires ingredients from both paths. So in single player, you'd have to have gone down both paths, or in multiplayer, you might want to work together with someone who's gone down the other path. So I'm just showing this off again. You summon it like a boat, you get on, and you control it with forward and backward, and it goes in the mainly direction you look, and in terms of up and down versus forward and backward, it goes in the direction of the blue wheel, which you can rotate with the forward and backward keys. It's not super fast, but it's free infinite flight, which, you know, has its perks. Let me just press shift to get off. The personal time rewinder is a fun little gadget, especially in multiplayer where you can use it to mess with people. You'll notice the tooltip says spring speed. This actually needs to be wound in the spring winding stand, in the spring winder. So it's one of those items. You may recall this machine when we used it for whirligigs and the crossbow. Is this thing running? No, of course not. Not anymore. This was a quick little demo setup. It's not really self-sufficient. So you wind it up in this machine as before. Now, I can just spawn in fully wound ones, which is much faster. And this one is quite easy to use. You save, now this lets you teleport around. So it's pretty much all in the tooltip there, but if I shift right click, and let's remember where we are when I'm shift right clicking. I'm standing, just to mark it off clearly, I'm standing on the andesite block and I'm looking at the giant dirt pile. And I shift right click, and you can see it says stored moment was, and then it's counting up time. Now, if I go out anywhere, I'm over here, and I right-click, I'm suddenly back here. I've also gotten a small debuff, but not a big one. And now, it says, and now if I use this again, I'm back here. And I can use it again to go back here, or 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 back here, and so on and so forth. What's going on? Well, every time I shift right-click it, let's say I do it here, okay, it saves that position and that moment, and then anytime I right-click it, it takes me back there, and it saves where I just used it as the new saved position. So now I can keep going back and forth by right-clicking. I can go back to here, walk over to my portal. The saved moment is the faraway place. Bong. Here we are. And now if I use it from over here, I'm back at the portal. So this lets you, so for example, a good use for this would be to set it at your base, and then if you're out exploring and then you fill up your inventory, you can just, let's say I'm underground mining or something, my inventory's full, well, let me just go back to the base, I can go put some stuff in a chest, get some more tools or whatever, and then go back to the mine shaft. Just like that. The debuff it gives you is worse the farther back you go. So so that was like a 10-second rewind. If it was, let's say, 2 minutes, it might be a little more severe. There is a limit on how far back it can take you. The limit is 5 minutes by default, but that's configurable. You can actually remove that limit. The other thing it does is it restores your health and hunger. So if you were, damn it, so for, let's say I save it at full health. Let me just demo this. If I stand up here and I go in survival mode. Now what difficulty am I on? I don't want to be on peaceful. I'm going to save up here, jump off, I've taken some damage. Hey, I can rewind and now I'm at full health again. I rewind back and I'm slightly damaged. Let me take a little more damage so it's a little clearer. Because that's not the clearest. I could be a lot more hurt than that. I think this might kill me. Hopefully not. That would be unfortunate. Jump. Okay, that kills me. That just kills you. Okay, good to know. That was a little too extreme of an example. But basically, when it rewinds you with your health and hunger that you had when you saved. So if you're, let's say, fighting a bunch, if, let's say, you see a dangerous place, like you're about to fight a bunch of monsters, you could save beforehand and then rewind to when you're at full health, which is very powerful in the right situations. So that's the personal time rewinder. Now the next toys are the armor set. So there's 4 different pieces of the armor, and we're going to show them all off at once. They're the modular goggles, the propelled wing pack, the tool belt, and the all-terrain, there is a dash, the all-terrain boots. Now these are 4 different pieces of armor. There's no set bonus or anything. You can use only one if you want, or only 2, or whatever. Each of these has a different utility effect. So there's 4 pieces of Technomancy armor. They don't take durability damage, they last forever, but they don't provide... Okay, fix that. They don't take durability damage. They also don't burn in lava. They're like netherite items. They don't burn in lava. They're fine. If I demonstrate that, and then I remove the lava, my goggles are fine. And they all provide a different utility effect, like a power. The other thing is that you can actually combine them. While they don't provide any armor on their own, you can combine them with armor. So, for example, if I get a netherite chest plate, you can see by default, I can't really display this in creative mode. By default, this wing pack isn't giving me any armor at all. But if I combine it in an anvil with the netherite version of the armor, not an ingot, the actual armor, it costs some levels. Go creative, so I can do this. And I can now have a netherite reinforced wing pack. And now it gives me the full protection of the netherite armor while still having the ability of the Technomancy armor. But now it will take durability damage. That's the thing. So now if I take damage from like a mob while wearing this, it will like take durability. And when the durability runs out, it'll still do the Technomancy thing, but it won't provide the netherite armor protection anymore. So the armor part takes damage, the protecting part takes damage, but not the ability part. If that makes sense, and then I can just repair it again with netherite ingots. So what do these things do? Well, they each do a different thing, and we're just going to show them off. The goggles... Oh, I already have an ammo. Why did I do that? On their own, they do nothing. But if you look at the tooltip, it says lenses, none. We're going to add some lenses. And when we add a lens, we're going to get a new power. So the different lenses we can add are all gems. So we can, for example, add a diamond, an emerald, a ruby, or pure quartz. Those are the 4 things we can add, and we can just add them in an anvil, like this. So now, lenses, ruby. Or lenses, ruby, and diamond. And let's add in some quartz. And emerald. So you just add the lenses you want in. And now, when I put this on, I'm going to have some powers. The first one we're going to see is the power from the quartz. If I look at anything and I've got quartz in my goggles, it's like a built-in omnimeter. I'm just automatically getting the omnimeter readout from anything I look at. So I could just throw this omnimeter away. I don't need it. I just can look at things and I get the full omnimeter readout. Just continuously. Very nice. For the other 3 abilities, we're going to need to use those keybinds we set earlier with the staff. The energy, potential, stability, and void control keys, which I've already bound. So if I've got ruby in here, I can press the energy key, and you can see I'm shooting a red laser out of my eye, which is very, very, very similar to an energy beam, in that it'll start fires. And if I had, let's say, a test subject here, any entity I hit will be set on fire. Except, unlike the beam staff, this is free. It doesn't cost something out of a cage. It's just not very strong, because it just sets them on fire. Another thing I wanted to mention was that the texture of the goggles changes as you add lenses. Like, you can see this version, it's got all these different colorful lenses in it. And if I, for example, put on the unupgraded ones, it's just glass. Okay. The next one we're going to show off is the emerald, and that's the potential control key. And if I just turn that on by pressing that key with an empty hand, night vision. It just gives you night vision. So now with these goggles, I can just give myself free infinite night vision. And let me just turn that off. The night vision effect will fade. The diamond, if I press the stability control key with an empty hand, it opens up a crafting window. In fact, this is a detailed crafting window, so I don't even need a detailed crafter anymore. I can just do detailed crafter stuff from anywhere. and normal crafting stuff from anywhere now, just built into my goggles. So that's a bunch of nice utility stuff. Next up is the wing pack. This one actually needs to be charged in a spring winding stand again. So like you can see spring speed, and I've spawned in a fully wound one. If I put it on, you'll notice it looks quite similar to an elytra, and that's because it is an elytra. Now I can use it as an elytra for free. I don't need to wind it up to use it as an elytra. So now already I've got the ability to combine netherite armor protection with an elytra, which is already nice, but hold on, it's very hard to enable an elytra in creative mode, I always find. I always end up flying, like, creatively. But if I want to do this, now we're going to see there is a keybind in here. Now this is bound by default to just control, aka sprint, is boost. And if I hold the boost key, aka control or sprint, while I'm wearing this, hold on. Is this one wound? Maybe I should rebind that. Let's bind it to something else. Alt. Why not? Let's bind it to Alt. Nothing wrong with binding it to Alt. So if I jump off now, if I hold the boost key, you can see I'm accelerating. Quite a bit, actually. I'm now going quite fast. And every time I and as long as I'm accelerating, I drain the spring speed. So this is quite similar to using a firework. So similarly to how you can use a firework while... I didn't spawn that in properly. A firework while using an elytra to go faster. Similarly to that, you can just use the built-in free fireworks of holding the boost key with the Technomancy elytra. And vroom, vroom, vroom. And I'm just zipping around. And that does use the I do have to rewind it occasionally if I want to use the boost. Okay. Next up is the tool belt. A tool belt's a little bit of a weird one because it doesn't really help you while you're alive. It helps you when you die. So let me make sure, is keep inventory on? No, okay. So, I'd like to point out the following things. Keep inventory is off. I have a wrench in my offhand and all these random things in my main hand. And I'm wearing a tool belt. And now I die, and I respawn, and I've kept my entire hotbar and my offhand. And now I have to get back there. I should have used that rewind device and kept it in my hotbar so I could get back quicker. That would have been smart. And everything that wasn't in that I didn't keep is now dropped as normal. So what happens is the tool belt, which should be around here somewhere, it doesn't get used up. It just, I don't know where it is. Here it is. The tool belt, as long as you're wearing it when you die, you'll respawn with everything in your hotbar and offhand, but you still drop the belt itself. So this means you don't have to be afraid to keep like valuable stuff on you when you're doing something dangerous. Like you want to take your uber enchanted full netherite tools with you when you go, I don't know, mining in the nether? Sure, it's fine, because as long as they're in your hotbar, even if you die, you'll respawn with them, so you won't lose it. So you'll be able to keep your crucial equipment. You don't respawn with your armor or anything, or your main inventory. And finally, we have the all-terrain boots, which do actually quite a few different things. It actually combines 4 different abilities. So, in vanilla, there are a bunch of various enchantments that are boots only, and mostly they're incompatible with each other, and they are frost, if I can find them. It's not under combat, is it? I don't know which tab those enchantments are kept under. Somewhere. Okay, I just know them. They are Frostwalker, Depth Strider, Feather Falling, and Soul Speed are the 4 of them. And basically, the all-terrain boots can include all 4 of those built in and slightly improved. So, we're going to show that off. So first of all, I need a body of water. And I can't be bothered to make one manually, so we're just going to do that with vanilla commands real quick. Ta-da! So, first thing you'll notice is that when you're wearing them, you can swim super fast. So that is much faster. So if I were to do, let's say, a couple laps of the pool here, you'll notice I'm moving quite quick, especially compared to when I take the boots off, and I'm much, much, much slower. So you move it, so you swim at quadruple speed. That's the depth strider ability. If I hold sneak, I have Frostwalker, but only while shifting. There's the Frostwalker ability. Total immunity to fall damage. So now I can safely jump off the precipice here. Don't try this at home, kids. And I'm totally fine. So that's our upgraded feather falling ability. And the last one is soul speed, which I admit may be a little difficult to demonstrate. Let me make a large patch of soul sand. And then you see I move at pretty much normal speed, or a bit faster, as opposed to without the soul speed ability where I'm very slow. So there's the soul speed effect built in. So it's basically the same, but a slight improvement on all 4 of the special boot enchantments, all built in. So those are various utilities. Now, I am aware that this video is slightly shorter than typical for one of these tutorial videos, but I'm going to make the next video contain all the machines, just so that I can try and cover them all, although honestly we may end up with a 3rd video. There's a lot of machines, and they're quite complex. We'll get there.